Hello and welcome all to yet another session of Startup Connect, organized by APAC News Network, presented by Dell and Microsoft. This virtual roundtable virtual panel discussion has been created to bring startup leaders and industry leaders together to discuss and deliberate upon various aspects of innovation in flexible workplace solutions. As we all know that in various organizations, most of its employees are currently either working from home or from any other location than an office. It becomes more important than ever for building a robust yet flexible workplace solution-based ecosystem. Secure access from any device and location, ensuring protection against ransomware and malware, greater employee-centric IT model. All this needs to be ensured. And to discuss all this, especially for the startup ecosystem, we have organized this virtual panel discussion. Let me introduce all our esteemed speakers. We have with us Mr. Sudeep Goswami, GM and Geo Head, South India Corporate Business, Dell Technologies. Welcome, Sudeep Goswami. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, my pleasure.
We're joined by Mr. Sahil Kumar, Chief Commercial Officer, DinoLab. Thank you so much, Sahil. Thanks for joining us today. If you can unmute your mic, please.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Pleasure is all mine.
We're also joined by Meghna Suryakumar, founder and CEO, CrediWatch. We welcome Meghna. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me.
We're also joined by Janardan Tiwari, CEO, DataTrained. We welcome Janardan. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you can unmute your mic, Janardan.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Same here. And we're also joined by Srinivasan Narayan, co-founder and CEO, Goodmeetings. We welcome Srinivasan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me over, and hi everyone.
We will be also joined by Abhinandan Sangam, co-founder and CTO of Finzy. He'll be joining us shortly. But before we start the panel discussion, let me invite Sudeep Goswami to give a short welcome address to all our panelists. Over to you, Sudeep.
Thank you, Souvik, and again, welcome to this. I find lots of colleagues here, and today I find colleagues from Bangalore to Noida to Chandigarh with me on this forum. How best can one spend time on this? Well, the topic is pretty interesting, so I'll tell you something. 18 years ago, when I first joined a corporate from my campus, it was a big IT name at that point in time, but when I joined, I had a seat, but I had to wait for a laptop. It took 7 days for IT to give me a laptop, and while I was working, it took 2 days to configure softwares and restart and all that. By the way, hierarchy dictated what machine you got. So is it bulky or bulkier dependent on where you joined. Everything was black and specs were like so low that you don't know. Once you got a machine, it was yours forever, no matter how many years would have passed and if technology cycles had changed. And obviously, IT debugging that time meant that you go back to the office, hand over to IT and pray that it is not lost, right? That's the era I joined in. And now when campus hires join our organization, I think what I know from them is that the machine reaches them in their remote location, either the day before they're joining or in the morning of their joining. They log in and everything is installed. All softwares are there, no patchwork required. Machines are sleek, full HD touch, flips 360 degrees, and SSDs and all that, completely secure, fully encryption based. If there is anything wrong with anything, there is on-site diagnostics and parts get flown into as remote cities as like, let's say, Agartala in Northeast. And if something goes wrong, machine gets shipped on. So there's I think a lot of difference that I have seen since I joined versus what the world today is. So sometimes I ask the campus hires that, hey, how do you guys feel? I think it's a lot of privilege, right? But the campus hires tell me that, they feel at least this much should happen, and, they probably won't go anywhere else if such kind of experience is not given. They will think it's an old company, not technology savvy. So, what, today I think a differentiated workplace is assumed to be BAU. And I think it is even critical for talent retention, as we have seen in Dell as well. At Dell, we have spent last 15 years trying to improvise and perfect what is called work from home today. And we have a solid point of view and a set of offerings too, which I will not bore you with right now. The point is that this is something which is the need of the hour and will be for many more years now. The model of working is changing, as Srinivasan told me before the call as to how it is at his end. So when this topic came up of this roundtable, I was pretty delighted to be a part of it and to hear from all of you with various backgrounds and varied industry experiences to what you think it is and what's going on. So I'm here to learn from you and the audiences and go back lecture about how and what we can do further to make this be in sync with what today's employees want. I think that's what I will say as you kickstart, Souvik, and back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sudiip, for your introductory note. And as you have said, things have changed rapidly and fast in the last 18 years. And if we take the example of last 1.5 years, things have changed like anything. We never thought that things will change like this. And the most important part is that how we ensure that employees are working seamlessly with a flexible, workable solution. And for that, we'll be discussing for next 1 hour how startup leaders are thinking about that, how industry leader is thinking about that. So let me first ask a question to Sahil. Sahil, if I may ask you that when we talk about generating employee-centric IT model, you just heard Sudeep also talked about when he talks to camper hires and kind of interaction they are having. So when we talk about generating employee-centric IT model, how do you see things from your perspective, being a chief commercial officer of DinoLab?
So if you talk about in EdTech sphere, scenario entirely changed from last year, March 2020. So if we talk about our employees or the clients we are coordinating with, it was a paradigm shift for us. Everything was on social interactions, all the things were happening socially, and then shifting it to remote. You won't believe I work with a company, we have our headquarters based out at Moscow, but I haven't been to Moscow, and the people from Moscow, they come after 6 months, but we interact remotely. So we are using several machines, several softwares, and adapting to technology was obviously a challenge for frontliners in our case, because they just know emails. They know, yeah, boss will write us an email, we'll revert on it. So making them well versed with softwares like Slack, and then bringing them on a Zoom platform, Teams platform, that was a challenge. But this was still an easy task to be accomplished. Working with schools, it was very tough for us. Entire scenario changed. We all were working in a brick school. It became click school. In a day, it became a click school, and till date, it is a click school. So everything is happening online now, nothing is offline. So it was a huge challenge, but we have been able to encounter it. People have learned a lot, school teachers, and even the teams have learned a lot.
Right. Right, you are Sahil when you say that scenario has changed in the last 1.5 years, and complete paradigm shift, and it's all about click, and things have changed a lot. And just today I heard that in Delhi government they've announced that till now no schools will be open till class 8. So I don't see anywhere near that we're opening up all schools and colleges and everything is normal. Let's accept that we are living in a new normal situation. So we have to cope up with this kind of mechanism. And I think that's where a flexible workplace solution will be very important in coming months and coming years also. I'll come to you, Sahil, but before that, let's have a perspective from Meghna. Meghna, how can we unlock the full potential of the workforce by leveraging innovation in a flexible work mode? What has been your experience, and where do you see the future going?
So prior to the lockdown, we operated completely on a physical mode. All our employees worked at the office, and we met our clients face to face. And most of the meetings and interactions were actually physical, where I'd be on a plane 4 days a week, and that's kind of how it was pre-COVID. In March 2020, we kind of had to undergo an overnight change of completely going digital, and we kind of, put a lot of thought to think through how we do this as a company, because CrediWatch, at the core of what we do, we provide analytic insights as a service to banks and businesses, which means that there's a lot of data, there's a lot of security, information security, and there's a lot of critical analytics that we do that powers our customers, right, in terms of their core businesses. So we had to kind of redesign the entire solution to kind of look at how do we do product innovation if everybody's all our, the entire team is dispersed all over the country. How do we ensure that there's information security in place to make sure that all that sensitive information does not go where it shouldn't, right? And third is, how do we now adopt providing services to bankers who are very traditional, who like to meet you face to face, right? And for them itself, the customers that we were dealing with, for them, the kind of changes that they adopted to, or they had to adopt to, was quite drastic and fast. So what we did was we actually sat and designed a solution in terms of how we're going to work from home. It started with, immediately investing in the technology to create, VPNs and virtual access, right? The minute we went in March, right? We were actually one of the first companies in India, even before a lockdown, I think 2 or 3 weeks before the lockdown, when we saw that there was one case in Bangalore, we just went on a virtual mode, right? We kind of did it proactively because we really valued the health and safety of our own employees. So we kind of thought through the process. We invested in information security and remote work solutions, right? That kind of would enable our employees to securely access and code. And we also kind of designed teams, right? The way we thought of teams, because when you work and do software development in a remote manner, you kind of have to look at how, how you cannot, everyone's in the same room, when we're working physically. But if everyone's all over the world and or all over the country and there are different stakeholders, how do they innovate and interact and create the product, right? And how do we keep those wheels churning? So we actually did many experiments to look at what constitutes an ideal size of a team, then how should the teams interact with each other, right? And how do you, create code, commit code, review code, submit code, and how do you interact with the customer? So we really designed that process and thought through that to kind of make sure that, that's kind of seamless from the employee's perspective and also from our own perspective. And another issue that we discovered really early on was work-life balance, because that becomes really crucial, right? When you're just working from home, you don't have the differentiation between your personal time and your office time. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges during the pandemic. And a lot of people, their friends and family members, were affected in the first and second waves. And it was an extremely stressful situation, especially for a lot of our, young engineers who were living away from home for years and had to go back home suddenly, and get used to living in a family situation again with their parents, right? And there would be lifestyle differences, choices. So there was a lot of conflict. So we also immediately started something called the Employee Assistance Program, where people would have access to counselors 24/7 if they want to talk about any of the stresses that they had, because they had to suddenly adopt to this sort of a situation from a personal perspective or work perspective. And another thing we did was we got everybody health insurance and life insurance, because if anybody fell sick, then we need to ensure that them and their families were protected. So there was an extended family plan for health insurance that we immediately adopted, and also a life insurance. So these are the kind of steps that we kind of took in March of last year to ensure that we're able to kind of recreate this environment that we had at CrediWatch physically back online. And HR took a lot of initiatives to do a lot of events like stand-up comedy, music concerts. We started a weekly yoga program where all of us did yoga together. So we also tried to ensure we had the softer aspects of working together to kind of recreate the same kind of cultural environment that we had at work.
Right. If I take a crux of what Meghna was saying, that it is more of, I think if I'm not wrong, you said that your company was one of the first companies which moved to virtual mode even before the lockdown started last year. And also every day you try to innovate to make your workforce flexible and also agile, though they're all staying in remote places, and also a lot of co-curricular activity, if I say that it was driven through HR. That's wonderful to hear. Let's have a perspective from Janardan Tiwari, CEO DataTrained. I have to ask this question. His company name is DataTrained. So when we talk about work from home, remote working, a lot of technology, we're talking about data, right? So how can we ensure data privacy and data security in an efficient way in these circumstances? I think Janardan will have a very good answer for this. Over to Janardan.
Yeah, sure. I will try to answer it, but my CTO would be a perfect guy to answer that, since he promoted and deployed the whole IT system after that lockdown. Okay, so I still remember that night in April 2019 when the Modi suddenly decided that India will go for a lockdown. I didn't sleep for almost 3 to 4 days. What exactly would happen? Because most of our employees were working on desktops. So, there were first two challenges. The first was, it took a toll on the company finances since we need to buy laptops in bulk. Okay. And the second was, no employee or vendor was willing to deliver the systems to the employees' home. That was the biggest challenge. Anyhow, we did it. So again, the major issue was, monitoring the company's confidential data usage, the security and the production. Okay, we also experienced 2 to 3 cyber attacks on our website, by some Chinese guys. But our CTO Farhad, really capitalized on what exactly should be the need of the hour. And the most important thing that we did, we tried to update our antivirus solution. Okay, so we decided the certain programs that needs to be downloaded, and the programs or the website that could not be downloaded, or you can't browse on your system. That was the most important thing that we need to ensure. Okay, prior to that, we are not working on VPN. Okay, we tried to install VPN on all the employees' system, so that because most of the employees were connected to their local broadband networks, which was not at all, that was like a treat, you know. We provided them a VPN, and that really prevented our users to work on a system that is coherent, and it also prevented outsiders from spying on our network. So VPN did a lot in managing those security protocols. Then we worked upon securing the home routers of the people, our employees at their home. We did various major steps to secure their home routers. Then we initiated a series of programs of communication in stores, like what exactly the mode of communication should be. So we and what exactly the storage could be, what it could be like. I mean, what exactly type of storage you need to store, and what exactly you need not to. And the most important, we initiated promoting good habits for securing devices, because a major hazard for business or personal devices was the company people working from home was to keep them physically secure. Some of the employees are working from home, some from restaurant, because they didn't have that network, that type of broadband connection which have got that high speed for almost a week or two. We try to ensure that in terms of password setting, that should have a two-factor authentication in most of the systems. These devices should not be open, unattended, whether it's in home or whether you're in the bedroom or anywhere. So in the long run, the best privacy practices that we try to inculcate within the employees, that was the best way that ensure that our systems and our data were safe at that time. But we are still working on that.
Right.
One more important thing, we are not into data. We are an edtech company, so we deliver data science programs.
True. Okay. Very important point said by Janardan that I'll come back to and to others as well, that you ensure through various programs and initiatives that employees are sensitized on the importance of securing the network, securing the entire workflow. That is very important, and obviously technology will be playing a role of enabler, but an individual has to also be sensitized about the importance of that data which he's or she is using. Quite interesting take. I'll come to you, but before that, let me also welcome Abhinandan Sangam, co-founder and CTO of Finzy. Thank you, Abhinandan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. but I won't give you much time to rest because my next question is to you. Abhinandan, need of the hour is a single sign-on, everything people need, including apps, desktops, and files. Can you share your experience of the new normal when we talk about this particular segment?
Sure. We have been trying to work on an extremely secured systems for almost 5 years now, ever since we started. My company's name is Finzy, and it's NBFC P2P. So you can understand the importance of the information that we have of our users and financial transactions and everything around that. So info security becomes extremely critical, not just because RBI is governing this and they have set up some rules. Of course, that's important, but it's more as a DNA that we need to follow to ensure that at any point of time there is no breach that happens. We take utmost care of the information, both internal and from an external standpoint. Now, I think the pandemic brought its own challenges, and we started seeing that since early last year. And the new normal has just blurred the boundaries of the workplace, right? The traditional network perimeter has lost its meaning. So we need to look at all these aspects a lot more different. So while VPN was providing, has been providing us with a lot more security, slowly we have started to understand what this zero trust security is all about, right? And that's where SSO is a critical part of it, the SAML token that comes into picture. So, but if just for freshers, just to understand, right? SSO for an enterprise or for Finzy, what it means is it's the ability for allowing the employees, right? In just one shot with a set of credentials to access all of the corporate apps, different websites that they're required to use, and a set of data, of course, with permissions when we have different consents, etc. And single sign-on SSO, it solves key problems for business by providing us with a lot more security and creates a lot of convenience for everybody. Just at a high level, you can think of Google, because you have signed into Google, and then you have access to your email, you have access to your drives, you have access to YouTube, you have other things of Google chat and other things that you can access, right? Now that is from one application. Now for third-party applications also, they make those APIs available wherein they say that, hey, instead of creating a complete new user flow or your user credentials, do you want to use your Facebook login or you want to use your Google login? And these primary apps do not share the passwords. And with the handshake, they make third-party access or the user access to that a lot more easier. So what I basically want to highlight over here is, while we use extensively VPN, what we have also been doing is, wherever possible, we have drastically reduced the repeated signing. And that is by basically leveraging SSO with multi-factor authentication and two-factor authentication to provide lesser friction for our users. Does that to an extent give an idea on what's happening?
Yes,
what we do?
yes. Right. I'll come back to Abhinandan. So if I take a crux of what you said, that repeating sign-ins are being avoided by using SSO. If I just take that as a crux of what you said.
A lot of convenience comes in. There is one small challenge with that, because if something were to happen, it's a single point of failure too. But then which aspect doesn't have these challenges? So you need to ensure that you have created that mesh to bring in additional layers of security and make it convenient, at the same time foolproof.
Right.
If I can sort of, I think I so relate to what Abhinandan said. SSO is, I think, critical for people to work from home, and I think we have built enough security now that in our cases, many apps, we said we don't need a VPN. We can still do with 2FA or MFA what was required. So yeah, it's a critical piece that people shouldn't miss in their organizations.
Yeah, in fact, just before you move on, what I wanted to, which I missed out was, while it's a fintech, while it's an NBFC, while RBI is watching us very, very closely, the pandemic forced us to work remotely, and people were scattered, right, in rural and various parts of India. But bringing in some of these controls in place initially there was challenges. A lot of times were required to be spent by the tech team. Instead of focusing on building critical features, they had to do this IT support, because as a startup we don't have large tech ops or DevOps, all those tech enabling teams. So, but once users got a hold of it, the new age tools and all have made it so easy that we now probably have started to feel that work from home is providing to be a lot more productive than what used to happen at physical workspaces. I mean, if I can say that, we're still trying to contemplate, while some sections are opening up for people to come to offices. We feel that, hey, you know what, when we track our performance, when we look at different teams, except for, I mean, no offense meant, sales team or some of those teams where we feel that it can get a lot better, but operations and tech, of course, and credit and all these teams have started performing to their fullest potential.
I can see many speakers are smiling with what you said at the end, that work from home has actually enhanced the productivity and operating, especially for ops. I'm sure that that has been the case for many sectors. But I think maybe in future it will be more of a hybrid more than only physical or work from home. That time will only tell. We can discuss about that later as well. Let's have a perspective from Srinivasan Narayan, co-founder and CEO, Goodmeetings. Srinivasan, do you think that it is time to deliver personalized tools designed for better employee engagement and operations? Need of the hour is personalized tools for employee engagement. Your thoughts on that, Srinivasan?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, absolutely, Souvik. And you know what I'll do is I'll actually share my experience pre-COVID, and I'll share my experience post-COVID to tell you, you know, how we as a company are delivering personalized experiences, right? So before COVID, I used to work for an edtech major, right? And I joined them after my previous company got acquired. And you know, our mobile app became the main app for the edtech major. So there was a lot of work with regards to integration of the team, the product, and the operations. I was based out of Bangalore, and I knew nothing better. So 6 months down the line, post the acquisition, I actually shifted to Bombay, where the headquarters of the edtech major was. Because as I said, I knew nothing better, and everybody in the team knew nothing better. And we felt that, you know, that was the only way to basically ensure maximum value to be generated from both the teams, right? The entire leadership team was sitting there. So it made sense for me to actually, you know, move there. So it was a very voluntary decision. And then COVID happened so this happened in June 2019, and then COVID struck us in July 2020, right? Around March, April 2020, and the lockdowns happened subsequently. And that's when, you know, the whole thing of remote work started. Now that's one part of the story, right? I quit the edtech major in July 2020, and I started my own company, which is basically, you know, kind of at the crux of what we are speaking. So it basically helps sales guys sell better over video, because we believe that, unlike what Abhinandan mentioned, sales is also going to go remote, right? And I fundamentally believe that you know, there are personalized tools that at least we as a company are developing for sales guys that can actually help them perform much better, to an extent that, you know, actually having sales calls over video will end up being more beneficial than actually doing face-to-face meetings, because the personalization that we are actually providing at scale for sales guys will ensure that there is more productivity and there is more efficiency in this whole process, because of which, you know, it will become an irreversible process. Now coming back to your question on how personalization can be delivered, right? And I'll only take a small slice of the whole pie, right? I will not talk about personalization for, you know, operations or personalization for tech, because I think that is something that has been well discussed, well debated, and everybody here knows, you know, that that level of personalization is already present. But I think one thing that has not been covered wonderfully well in the discussion today or generally is the fact that even sales as a vertical can actually undergo personalization during COVID. And that's what we are doing. And I'll give you an example of how that personalization happens. Now take the example of this meeting itself, right? we are having this on Zoom, and the prices of Zoom have skyrocketed since COVID happened, right? Yet I believe that Zoom is not solving for all the use cases, right? Today we are using Zoom for every kind of meeting, be it a webinar, be it a internal team meeting, be it even a sales meeting. But each of these meetings actually need certain level of personalization, right? And that's where a product like Goodmeetings comes in. Let me take the example of sales itself. Now, the initial refrain was, hey, you know what? I need to travel to that location to meet that guy, to build a bond, to really understand that person's body language during the meeting so that I can actually perform better. I can pitch my sales pitch better, right? What we've actually built is for sales guys themselves on a remote meeting, they get to know the reaction of the person at the other end when the call is going on, right? And this reaction that is being developed helps us to give dynamic nudges, cues, and prompts to the sales guy during the call itself, so that the sales guy can actually perform 10x better during a video call. And these cues and nudges are not only, tailor made to the sales guy, because we know how the sales guy has performed over a period of time. They are also, kind of based on on the kind of discussion that is happening during the call, right? So A, which sales guy is actually, performing this particular action. B, the kind of person who's actually attending the call, and therefore there is hyper personalization that is happening. So the nudge and the cue that I would get as a sales guy during the call is very different from the nudge and the cue that my colleague as a sales guy would get for the same person who's joining the call. And that ensures that your sales meetings are far more effective. Now take this information out, right? And try to see and try to compare this to a face-to-face meeting. For a face-to-face meeting, you have to travel. The number of meetings that you can cover in a day is maximum 2. With a video-based solution where you can actually, kind of do 7 to 8 meetings a day, efficiency sets in. Plus, we are able to monitor the call, we are able to really measure the call, and we are able to give you personalized nudges, right? So that completely changes the game. Now, fundamentally, what happens is, regardless of whether the lockdown stays or the lockdown is removed, regardless of whether we are hit by a third wave or not, teams will actually, prefer to have more and more calls on the video because A, it is time saving, B, it saves a huge cost. Right. So I fundamentally believe that personalization for every vertical is going to happen. And as Abhinandan rightly pointed out, for most of the verticals like tech, it has already taken place. For some of the underserved verticals like sales, we as a company are actually, working in that direction. And fundamentally, in a few months down the line, we will look at a scenario where there is personalized, I would say tool set for every employee, depending upon the vertical that employee belongs to, and more importantly, depending upon the disposition of that particular employee. And there are many companies today which are actually doing that. We are one of them.
Right. Thank you so much, Srinivasan. I'll come back to you. So, taking cue from what you've said, that interesting facts you've said, that personalized tools actually has helped sales team to increase their efficiency. That's quite interesting. We'll discuss about this later on. So let's have a perspective from Sudeep. Sudeep, you heard them, got insights from startup leaders. Being an industry leader, how does Dell contribute towards innovative workplace solutions? You just heard all of them. So what is your experience on that? Sudeep, over to you.
Firstly, I'm happy to find convergence. What Abhinandan said about SSO and what Srinivasan said about sales guys being on the call and can still sell virtually. I'm a sales guy. I've been selling virtually for the last almost now 2 years. And our numbers have gone through the roof in terms of what we are doing. I believe productivity is not a challenge anymore in this virtual environment. Now, there are aspects of working from home and innovative solutions. There are software aspects like mental health and how do you keep employees motivated, which Meghna touched upon. I think all of us, depending on the culture code that we have, do these things in organizations. So I'll not go that side. I'll go to the infrastructure part, which makes your productivity a lot more efficient, and how do you deal with it? I think there are 3 things that, while a data center and the network load comes in, I think the experience is that the user and hence at the end or the edge. And I would say there are three things which I would say are how you create a right workplace in today's time. First is a right device with intelligence and security built in. And I'll give you examples. But the first point, let's choose a device carefully. A device may break or enhance the experience that your employees would be going through. So that's one thing. The second thing is add to it adequate software and services which are built in, which could be self-serviced accessed or can be accessed easily without going through too much of complexity. The third thing is automate to an extent that you optimize the user experience. Call it modernization of today's IT management, right? So what we do, like I'm sitting here today, I have two different monitors in front of me. I have a monitor which has got an integrated FHD camera. I've got an integrated Teams bar with this, can take Zoom. I have an additional speaker phone which can take a radius of up to 12 feet as I speak. I have proximity sensors on my device where if I just sit on the chair, it logs in. It's beyond Windows Hello, for example. And since we are at work from home, there is noise, so there is optimized noise control. So you don't hear noise more than 3 feet from where you're sitting, right? So all this comes together in a device that you give to your employee. We should be able to, first of all, deliver their device anywhere in the country to employees, which means you bundle and package everything that you want, softwares, and it need not go to a distributed hub that your ID sits and then reconfigure and sends to everybody else. You automate that portion by putting things across. And then you talk about how do you make the life productive? For example, make the machine very secure, safe bias. Abhinandan spoke about zero trust based policies and deployment. Yes, those are very critical. So that takes care of things. You don't lose data. You don't have security breaches. He said, but I somebody said three. I think Janardan said 3 instances of cyber hack or attempt at his end. 90% of hacks come through end user devices. Okay, so that's very critical. So safe BIOS says zero trust. That's something that you take care of. Then if you layer with multiple ISPs, for example, it could be Microsoft SCCM or IBM Tiwari, you get a lot more manageability of things. What is manageability? For example, if you're doing coding or if you have many intensive applications, you could optimize the amount of memory space, amount of CPU count that you want for a particular application. You could optimize how fast a battery charges so that when you have critical meetings, you don't run out of battery. You could optimize your battery performance and drain it or whatever you could. Right? There are sensors which help you lock applications with your face rather than anybody else's. So you can build in a whole lot of security by tying into ISPs. All this makes remote monitoring very easy for IT guys. So you don't have to spend money or time in remote monitoring. We have 26,000 employees today all over India in 182 locations, and we are doing remote monitoring. It has reduced a lot of our IT budget and costs too. So remote monitoring comes in when you have software is very well integrated, has APIs built in with many things. And lastly, what we are doing with Microsoft, with Intel, with VMware, building up, call it a single pane of glass or call it a single management console, where AI ML driven user patterns or inputs are detected and is used to optimize the experience of that user on that machine. For example, if it is heavy Excel usage that somebody has or heavy Microsoft project, then one would at that point in time reduce the amount of memory given to let's say daemon processors at the back end. So those things is something that one would auto learn. What I'm saying is, I think in a nutshell, is that technology has actually moved a lot to make your work from home experience as good as what it was in office or even better. And I think we are all seeing productivity gains in this model. And I believe it is there for it's to stay here. I think that bulk of our team members will be WFH in the next 8-9 years. So we have to make this work and as soon as possible for our employees. Otherwise, like in ITs, I'm seeing a lot of attrition is what employees are showing. People are going to better places where these things are taken care of. Long answer to a short question, Souvik, but I thought it's important to sort of put this point across that giving your employee the right user experience at home will go a long way in him determining to stay with you or move away.
Right. So I think you talked about right device with intelligence, adding adequate software to that device and automating to certain extent that it gives optimizable user experience for end users. So that's very important, and how technology and innovation can help in creating that flexible workplace solutions. I can see many questions have already come. So let me take one question. Likely to emerge. What will be the workplace related to global best practices that India can evaluate? So, and we can ask other questions to other panelists as well.
Well, I think India is one of those places where best practices have emerged and others are copying. A lot of us, big and small, I think in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, moved from working from office to work from home. And I think you heard Abhinandan talk about single sign-on, and I spoke about security. I hope that people have found many cues here itself. And these are something that we have seen people follow in other countries. So make no bones, what we're talking about here is really cutting edge. And it is happening because Indian brains and Indian people are thinking through. And we are just 6 colleagues here on the call. There's a huge startup ecosystem in India, which has got so many bright brains who are thinking through all this, and their innovations today are mind-boggling, the amount of applications that they are building out. So, well, I would rest my point here, and I guess maybe Abhinandan and Janardan, Meghna, Sahil, Srinivasan can add up.
Yeah. I mean, I recollect in March of last year when suddenly this happened. Talking about the experience at Finzy, right? We required each of the borrower to be physically verified. Although there are a lot of online tools available, because this is on a P2P platform, what happens is it's not our money that we lend to borrowers, it's an investor's money that's lent to the borrower. It's just like Uber, right? You are a platform that is helping a rider connect with a driver. So similarly, we connect a lender or an investor to invest in multiple borrowers. So we have to be absolutely sure that this borrower is real. So while there are so many tools and technologies available, we had followed, because we wanted to test the market, we wanted to be absolutely sure. We ensured that we literally went to each and every physical borrower. Okay, and that's the reason why we restricted to the top 20 cities in India, not gone to everywhere. But then suddenly when lockdown was announced, and this is something that no AI/ML could have predicted or no statistical things could have anticipated, how do we do? We can't just shut down the business, right? And it has to go on. And we started quickly exploring what are some of the things that were available in the market. And just like what Sudeep said, we said that, hey, we can just ask for a photo for the borrower to send it, and there are geotags which we can track, and we can see that whether the address matches to that place or not. And then we started seeing that people are sending from MG Road, I mean, just talking about Bangalore as an example, or from their office place. So we had to tell them that, hey, this photo would not work. Can you take a photo at your residence? Because we need to figure out whether that address really matches or not, to what degree it matches. And then we had to work with telecom operators and take some permissions from RBI saying that, can we ping the network and can we get that 50-100 meters radius so we can triangulate and find out that indeed this borrower stays over here. So we were shocked, saying that 3 years we never worked on all these disruptions. We call ourselves fintech, and now suddenly a pandemic forces to bring our business to a halt. And then we explore, we think through, and these innovations did not have to necessarily come from a founding team or a tech team. This came from the credit team. This came from the collections team, the people who went to the field. They came and told us that all these things are possible when they drop a pin or they drop a location. I mean, people can fool you, can go near that location, can do that. But when you have this telecom providers come into picture, or a video call that happens, a KYC, and then they show a document, very simple procedures. Of course, bandwidth and all, I'm not talking about it. There are challenges with that. We realize that how some of these innovations can indeed work, not only in terms of reducing the turnaround time, but also in terms of giving a better consumer experience. Imagine a verification guy coming to my home saying that, hey, you're taking for a loan and I want to verify some of these things. It's still a taboo in India, right? What my parents will think or what my partners will think and all. As against saying that, hey, just get on a video call, or just show some of your documents, or just give us a consent saying that through my telephone network, I can ping without even sending a message or sending making a call. So these things started creating delights, and we realized that innovations can happen from anywhere, and we don't have to follow the typical ideation sessions and coming up with a roadmap, and we will implement this feature and become fully paperless, automated in the next 6 months and 12 months. It can happen in a week's time.
Right. Quite interesting take by
I'll
Abhinandan.
actually add to what Abhinandan said, because we've implemented an exact same solution for a lot of our fintech clients. So companies like Indifi, which is one of the largest fintech players in India, they came to us when lockdown happened, and they said that, hey, you know what? We are not actually able to do remote inspection with Zoom very clearly, because Zoom is not giving me the location of the user, right? Nor is Zoom able to, Zoom forces my user to download the app when the user is on mobile, right? The third thing is my user is not able to flip his camera and show his location remotely. Now, these are all very India-based use cases that nobody is going to solve, right? And as Sudeep rightly pointed out, we actually, as a startup, incorporated, a location capture so that you could exactly get the location of the user from mobile. So that location could be mapped to the location that the loan borrower had given when he had applied for a loan. So fraud was reduced. Then the second thing was we actually incorporated a flip camera option in our solution, so user could actually join the meeting through his phone, flip his camera and show the location of his workplace. That could be recorded and it would immediately go and sit in your CRM. And the third thing was basically we actually optimized for low bandwidth, because these inspections happen in godowns, in basements, etc. Right? So that is one use case. The second use case I want to point out is retail companies. High-end retail companies are actually seeing very low footfalls these days. So what companies like us have done is we have enabled video solution for them. So user can come, he can look at the products, a jewelry for example, and then quickly get on a video call. And then on the video call there is a lady, or depending upon the gender of the ornament, the person comes and he basically shows you wearing that ornament, and you get a sense of how good that ornament is. And you have a bunch of SKUs as recorded videos that you can show depending upon the discussion. So there are enough and more innovations that are happening in India, and I think India, as Sudeep rightly mentioned, is at the forefront of all this. And even US based companies like Zoom that we're using today is not even solving for that. So a lot of these localized use cases will be solved by Indians and by India based companies.
Right. That's a great news to hear. Sudeep, when started his speech, he said that he can see a lot of convergence, and I can see now what Abhinandan and Srinivasan said. There are convergence. There's opportunity actually to
massive opportunity. I would say $1 billion
converge in those ideas and create something new. You never know. Let's have a perspective before we end this panel discussion virtual. Let's have a perspective from Sahil and Meghna and Janardan as well. Sahil, I can see a question that how has been the response from employees about new innovations in workplace solutions? Quickly, if you can just shed some light on that. What has been the experience from employees' point of view?
If we talk about employees, adoption has been a challenge, and especially with the frontliners. But slowly, gradually, with technology and the support from our tech team, they have been able to adapt. But in our case, it was more to do with the schools. So we all were selling smart class solutions or instructor-led solutions. But schools at that time needed live classes. So we had to build live classroom portals. We have to come up with the portals of that kind which are end-to-end encrypted. It should not be like some platform, I cannot name the platforms, wherein anything could be shown or everything goes haywire. With that, we had to create adaptive content for the kids. So adaptive content was the need of ours, because independent learning, we talk about adaptive learning. So we as a company, we got into these things and created a 360-degree approach. Assessments was another challenge for us when it came in tech. So everybody was, and parents are helping kids while their assessments. In our case, we made adaptive assessments and even 360-degree approach with a comprehensive report for a parent. This is what your kid is doing. These are the remedies. So to give them a live classroom kind of experience, and system creates a dialogue, that was a huge challenge. But learning has been immense in this time, and we have been able to create that kind of solution.
Right. Thank you so much, Sahil. Meghna, if I may ask you, I can see a question. I thought just to ask you this: a startup needs to be cost conscious, what are the cost matrices they should keep in mind while looking for innovative workplace solutions? Quickly, your thoughts on that, Meghna?
Sure. As a startup, one of the mottos in which we do business is we are frugal. And that's kind of the way we, do things, be innovative and be frugal. So, when CrediWatch, when we went remote, we brought in those same principles in terms of how we're able to scale being frugal, but yet innovative, right? So from that perspective, what my technology teams did was we, just like the single sign-on that a lot of enterprise providers were providing as solutions, right? We created our own SSO internally. And that's an SSO that we also offer to clients. So that was something we use internally. And we're also able to license it out and make money out of it by offering the SSO to our own customers, right? So that way, a lot of technology solutions that CrediWatch per se adopted when we went remote is something that's become a part of our product. And that's kind of how we've been able to optimize. And one of the important innovations we did was we connected our QuickBooks data, we connected our Jira data, and we connected all the multiple different data sources, sales data, CRM, ERP, so that me as a CEO could get a single dashboard to get a one-click view of my own business, right? To how much is receivables, how much is payable, right? What are the teams doing? How many support tickets are left unanswered? And now that is a new feature, what we call CrediWatch Pro, which we're offering to small businesses. And it's a huge product upgrade that we've done, where we're now connecting with different private data sources of small businesses who are remote now, so that the promoters and the founders and the small business stakeholders can get a one-shot view of their own business at one click and make data-driven decisions. So that's kind of how we've been able to be innovative and actually productize what we needed to do internally.
Right. Again, interesting perspective by Meghna. Let's have a perspective from Janardan. Janardan, what is your thoughts on that?
I think he perhaps has just dropped off. I can't see him.
Yeah, I think he logged off. Maybe so. We have come to the end of this panel discussion. Maybe I can ask a question to Sudeep. I can see that question Sudeep has already replied to that. Someone has asked that how secure is online communication?
I'll give you a convoluted answer. Okay. Today, the hardware industry is going through a massive shortage because the demand for devices in India is 118% of the population. Okay. And that includes rural population as well. So think of it. Why is that happening? Because everybody, be it students, be it employees, and in general, our parents and grandparents have adopted nicely and beautifully to this medium of communicating and working. This gives you an indication of the strength of communication and how secure and safe it is. Okay? And obviously, there are various technologies as well as the way you implement them. Like I was talking about some things like safe BIOS and those things, which give you that great ease. And I think Abhinandan touched about that also when he mentioned his first point. So I would say, yes, unless you do not have those practices and policies, obviously best softwares can also get rigged. But if you are implementing them in a logical manner, there are enough examples in this world in India where you can be very comfortable about it. I'll probably invite Abhinandan to share some more if he would want to answer this question.
No, I think you covered it. It's a little tricky one, but I think in the recent past, all the enhancements that we have been bringing in and the things that we are experimenting is providing. I think it's all gearing towards we being ready for it. Somewhere there was a mention around the cost part. I think that still needs some time for it to be very effective. To be used in large scale. Till then, I think we will have to figure out with internal innovations and whatever other simple tools and.
See, I would maybe on the cost add one thing. See, today there are various models of consuming cost, structuring OPEX or structuring CAPEX, so that if you look at, if you're an entrepreneur or a startup starting, the cost angle can be thought through and can be done over a period of 3 years if you are open and willing to experiments. I would say cost is a good metric, but look at along with the same amount of weightage or balance towards employee experience too. Employees lost, it takes 5x more time and effort to get them. So just don't look at only cost is what I would say.
Right, I agree on that.
Right. So with this, we have come to the end of this panel discussion on innovation in flexible workplace solutions. the theme of this panel discussion, the event name has been Startup Connect, organized by APAC News Network and presented by Dell and Microsoft. And I'm happy to have with us Sudeep Goswami, Sahil Kapoor, Meghna, Suryakumar, Abhinandan Sangam, Janardan, Tiwari, and Srinivasan, Narayan, the startup leaders and the industry leaders all together, convergence of ideas to discuss and deliberate upon various aspects of flexible workplace solution in the new world order, new normal, and how innovation can be leveraged more and more. We try to cover all those aspects in this last 1 hour, and I hope the participants who are participating today in this panel discussion, the speakers, all have been enlightened with each other's point of view, and that will surely give us some cue to move forward in the right direction. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us this on Startup Connect on innovation in flexible workplace solution. Take care, keep innovating your workspace as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.